How did your journey to become an award-winning author come about?
Well, I in my mid-20s, I moved from Sudan to Scotland because my husband was working in the North Sea oil rigs. It was a bit of a culture shock, actually. And so I spent a lot of time reading because I've always loved reading fiction. And then I wanted to, then I thought, I wanted to write myself and write about my homesickness. And also at that time, the early 90s, this was the start of this anti-Arab, anti-Muslim sentiments in the media, because coming after the Salman Rushdie affair in the late 80s and then the Gulf War. So I remember I would, read things in the newspaper that made me angry, and I'd want to write letters to the editor. But when I started to do that, it was fiction that came out rather than a proper, a kind of a logical, argued point of view.
So, I mean, your heritage, obviously, in all your works plays like a strong role in what you write. And so can you tell me a bit more about how your identity and faith have inspired your writing?
Well, definitely, because one of the things that made me homesick was the fact that the people around me didn't know anything about Sudan, and they didn't know anything about Islam. And so it was something that I wanted to assert, I suppose. And so that became something I could do through the writing. Like, I could put this identity in fiction.
It's quite daunting to do that in a way, like putting your deep feelings and your faith out there. So having the courage to do that, like, were you afraid initially, or did you just feel inspired to write?
For me, because I didn't grow up here, somehow you don't know what you're missing, or you're not afraid of what you don't know. So if I'm putting my faith forward, or my I don't know what people's reactions are. I can't guess because I don't know them. They're all strangers. So in a way, it's not really courage. Because courage is, I suppose, when you know the consequences, or it's just, I had nothing to lose, and I wasn't really out to fit in. I didn't believe I could fit in. The gap was so big that that it wasn't really about courage. It was more just about I was compelled to do that.
So coming back to the bird summons, it really brings to life the struggle of Muslim women in the West, including identity issues, which we've discussed, and especially for those who weren't born in the UK, feeling like you don't belong or you're not British enough. I took a quote out from the book, I think on page 42, where Salma was feeling like no matter how many clients she massaged, and no matter that she had given birth to children with Scottish blood, deep down his people would think that she was not really one of them, that she was not British enough. That issue of identity and belongings, are these issues important to you, and do they in any way reflect your own experiences?
Yeah, I think so. I think unlike many parts of the world, Britain is really resistant to outsiders, and in a very kind of odd way. And no matter how much people integrate, and no matter how much they do, there is always this reminder that they are outsiders, and that they have to somehow qualify to belong. I mean, of course, things are getting better, but very, very slowly. Also, things are changing kind of superficially. I mean, you see all these ads of, mixed race children, and everybody getting together and integrating and things like that. But it feels more like it's a marketing trick rather than a reflection of reality.
That's why I think work like what you've done and what you write about is so important, because it reaches everybody, and it challenges those deeply ingrained beliefs that people have. So I love the way that, so you use the three main characters in the bird summons and they're searching for their purpose. And you interweave like Quranic learnings using the hoopoe as a messenger guide and elements of the 12th century Sufi poem Conference of the Birds. Like, how did this inspiration come to you? Are these things that you grew up with, these stories, or did they come to you later?
Well, yeah, of course, I grew up, reading the Quran and knowing the stories of the Quran, and the special story of the hoopoe with King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. It's one of my favorite stories from the Quran. So that idea. But when I started the book, I didn't really know that I was like the women. I didn't know what kind of journey it was going to be. And then when this hoopoe arrived, it seemed to me that having come north so far, the hoopoe then would know also the stories, the Celtic folklore, and so there's a lot of merging of the Celtic folklore and also things like Pilgrim's Progress and an awareness of some of the texts of Christianity. One of the things I wanted to show with this book was how, as Muslims, our lives in a way are very similar to the early Christians in Britain. And so we shouldn't feel alienated from Britain, because we're actually, we have a better connection, more than modern British people who are losing their connection to their faith and therefore losing their connection to to their past and to their history.
It's Islamophobia month. So for this month, I wanted to explore the Muslim heritage in Britain and the impact and legacy of Islam in the UK. I don't think many people know that Islam has a longer heritage here in the UK than what they think from the immigration of the 50s and 60s. And so I was particularly inspired by the story of Lady Evelyn Cobbold in the Bird Summons. So can you tell me a bit more about her background and how her story inspired you to use her as a core part of the book?
So I had come across her a long time ago, reading about converts to Islam, and I live in Aberdeen, so I live in Grampian, and so actually where Lady Evelyn is buried is only like 2-3 hours away from here, so it's quite close. And so when I thought about her for the book, I thought, oh, that would be a good, focal point for the women to go and visit her grave, and I did the journey myself as research for the novel, to do that. And I read her book. Her book is very interesting. That she did do this, went on hajj, and was the first on record British woman to go on hajj.
And you sort of use her, like the similarity in her being Muslim but belonging also to the soil in Scotland, and the same for these women, like they also belong in that connection with her. So when you said you did that visit to her grave, was it as hard as how it's described in the book, with a very long walk and you can't take the car?
Yes, it was exactly like that, because me and my husband were going to take a car, and then at the last minute we were told, oh, you can't drive in because this is the stag season.
Is she like buried in the middle of nowhere?
She's buried in the middle of nowhere in this estate, and it is really amazing. It is amazing because you see all the clouds. You're going up, and all these clouds are passing, and the light, and it's just extraordinary, really amazing. But she used to hunt there, and she used to. That was her estate. That people just viewed her as this eccentric woman. That she was so posh and so aristocratic that they couldn't relate to her at all. That just shows you how lonely she was. That she was really, really lonely, and it's just amazing. And and that loneliness appealed to me because it kind of made me go back to my early feelings of loneliness when I came to Britain, when I was in a place where there weren't that many Muslims. And when one of the things that I found extremely moving was reading the testament of this imam who went, and he describes how he was woken up in the middle of the night by the telephone, that he had to get on this train. And for him, this whole journey was like so far away, and you could really feel that. So it was really, really very beautiful reading his testament to what happened that day. It's just incredible.
And he still went, and even like getting a train's one thing, but then like how you describe it, where you have to walk for ages as well.
You read about this the burial, not only from the point of view of the imam, but also the people who attended the funeral. And of course, in the funeral, the breakfast or the meal that all the people had, the wine was served and everything, and they were saying how the imam was the only one who wasn't drinking. So it was also this juxtaposition of the Scottish, the Islamic burial with this, this breakfast. And then she wanted the bagpipes to be played also in the funeral. So you had this funeral where the bagpipes are played.
I read somewhere that the bagpipes come from Muslim tradition.
Oh, that's
through my research with the dance history.
Yes.
So that's quite interesting, actually. Do you feel like literature and the arts, like what you're doing, can be a useful tool also to break down Islamophobic hatred and misrepresentation? For examples, like where you tell stories about real people and the beautiful Islamic heritage.
Yes, I think that is definitely a way of doing that, and it's a non-threatening way, so people don't feel that they are, triggered or uncomfortable when you present them with a novel, or you present them with a dance or a piece of music or a song, or a meal or food. They're actually comfortable with that, and they do embrace it, I think. But I also think that it shouldn't be about us burdening ourselves with the need to teach and to instruct. We should also now, especially that our numbers are growing, we should also be catering for ourselves, for our needs. So yes, a book like Bird Summons is, people will learn, non-Muslims will learn a lot about Islam from it. But for you, the fact that it resonated with you, that means a lot to me as well. So we should also be talking to each other, and we should also be, educating each other. It's not just about us serving the mainstream and trying to correct the media. I think that's just going to be exhausting.
I think it's really important for us to know our own heritage and identity, just to strengthen our inner selves.